Alrighty, good evening, everybody. Hello, this is the Fakeologist speaking. It is Monday, February 20th, 2023. We almost started the show on time. It's 8:02 p.m. Toronto time. That's my new way of describing our time zone. This is Toronto time because we do broadcast all around the world on YouTube, Facebook, DLive, Twitter, and of course my own video platform, FakeoTube. And if I say Eastern time, that's not going to mean anything to someone in Australia. And since the third most subscribed, most popular country that comes to my website is Australia, it's just a lot easier to say Toronto time. That way they can go to their favorite time converter. If you go to fakeologist.com/live, you will find I have a link to Date Timeful. I think that's what it's called. Let's see if I can find it here. My 5,000 pages here. Anyway, I think it's Date Time or something like that. And then you can, it's dateful.com. Go to dateful.com and that will give you whatever time it is wherever you are. And I'm going to get right to our guest because she is coming to us all the way from Australia. And I believe the Corporation of Victoria and the Corporation of Australia. And that is Cindy Niles. We've been looking so forward to seeing and hearing from you. Hello, Cindy.
Hello, Fakeologist. Thank you so much for having me on today. Here in the Corporation of Victoria, which is the eastern seaboard of Australia, it is 12 noon.
Amazing. I have so many of my favorite fakeologists are Australians. Canadians, forget about them. They just don't show up in the same volume as especially Victorians. I have some of my favorite regular fakeologists. One of them is in Geelong, many Melburnians and around Melbourne. So I don't know what's happening in Victoria, but it's where some of the best content is coming from and visiting fakeologists, including yourself.
Thank you. Well, there are a few test beds around the world. We've risen to notoriety and put ourselves on the map, I think, here in Victoria and in Melbourne. And I would hazard a guess that it has to do with how long the program has been running here. And also that we're not just designated as a resilient city and smart city, but also that we've taken on membership to the Strong Cities Network, and these all have to do with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And Strong City designates basically, in layman's terms, stronghold. So we did get an accelerated program here. The reasons why are, speculative. There isn't, any spokesperson for the United Nations coming out and saying, well, we've chosen Melbourne for XYZ reasons. But definitely, this is what sort of put us on the map. Besides, the tennis, I suppose, the Australian Open, which is probably the only other thing that we were ever known for.
Right.
And then there's that, the inversion that did come before COVID. And that inversion was Melbourne winning the award for most livable city. I think we won the award 7 times.
Yeah,
and
I heard
each
you
time
say
it
that,
became more preposterous and more absurd to anybody who had not their eyes open, but to anybody who actually reflected on their lives and who had lived in some other country and had experienced anything outside of Melbourne. Those people would have understood that there's something going on. So,
are the Strong Towns named after Maurice Strong, who was, I think, a Canadian / I think he was half Asian or something that was instrumental in bringing about?
I've never made that connection,
Mm-hmm.
but you could actually be right. Besides, it's, self-described. what it means.
Yeah,
But hey, that would make sense.
maybe because there's also a strong towns um, agency or NGO as well. And I linked up to them by visiting a YouTube channel that I actually quite like called Not Just Bikes. And that's a guy from my neck of the woods in Canada, Ontario, which is the largest province in Canada. And he was mentioning how a lot of his terminology and knowledge about where he moved from London, Ontario to Amsterdam, and it's called Strong Towns as well. So there's a lot of I don't know if I don't think they're related, but it's quite interesting how the word strong comes through a few times, and they're all
I
very related.
No, I think they would be related
Oh, okay.
because it's smart cities and smart neighborhoods, and they generally find a term and apply it across the board. So I would imagine it is. There is very little sort of. It's not easy to look up the strong city. I mean, you can find the strong cities network with a simple Google search, but deeper information, um, you kind of really have to start searching extra terminology to find it. It's not as I don't know. It's not as
It's not available as
overt. You
yeah.
don't get as much as you would with resilient cities. And
Yeah.
we seem to know a whole lot more about the sustainable aspects
Yeah.
of the program.
Well, you can't see the screen, but I've got on here strongtowns.org, and it says here thousands of people across North America are working to make their cities safe, livable, and financially resilient. Are you ready to join the movement? So that really it does sound
That,
like it is the same
that's
thing.
the one.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the one.
So they
Yeah.
don't none of it sounds terrible when you read their website and look into it. But before I go on, I want to make sure I thank Jenna and Brian, who are always helping find me guests because they saw my interest in communitarianism and they helped bring Lark in Texas onto the broadcast. And he's the one that brought up your name in glowing terms. He said you have to find and listen to Cindy Niles, and I'd never heard of you or also Julianne Romanello. So I'd never heard of you two ladies, so I had to go digging, and then I found you have two different Facebook profiles. So I'm showing the screen as we're going here. I know you can't probably see the screen because you're on your phone, but you have two different profiles that I've linked to on Facebook because I know you get shut down and reinstated on Facebook as they do, as they like to mess with.
I'm up to my third profile now.
Oh, you have another profile. Okay.
No. These are what you're looking at is number 2, which is the grey t-shirt or blue t-shirt, and then there's the
Okay.
red t-shirt profile, which is number 3.
Okay.
Um, the original profile, that was a picture of me behaving like a mermaid.
Okay.
Um, so it was an underwater shot, basically, and it looked
Nice.
like a mermaid. Um, and that profile got totally vanquished in August of 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a permanent deletion by Facebook without explanation, but we know why. But so then that's why I've got multiple
Yeah, I understand. I
profiles.
get it. Well, I'm locked out of my Facebook profile from years ago, and then they
Hmm.
wanted me to upload my ID. It was about 5 years ago, and I had a bit of a fakeologist profile on Facebook, but I didn't wanna upload my driver's license and whatnot. I just said that's enough. I don't really need Facebook. I know everyone is over there, but I said a long time ago, I'm gonna stick to my own platform, and I've been blogging for the last 20 years and had fakeologists for the last 12, and I just keep all my data on my own server, and if it gets blown away, well, I have it on my own server. I can just reinstate it. And the other thing is I have my own video platform called FakeoTube, which is a little more expensive because streaming video uses a lot of data. And I'm very grateful to all the donors to fakeologist.com/donate because it costs me about 200 US a month to run. I can show anyone the receipts if they want, but I'm happy to pay for it myself. But if anyone wants to donate, they can do that as well. And it's all my favorite videos that I have that I want to keep in perpetuity. So that way, when I reference them on my blog, people find them and they don't have to worry about a blank page or a deleted page like on YouTube or Rumble or any of the other guys that bring you in there for free and then they dump you at will. So instead of worrying about that, I just do it myself, which everyone can and should be able to do. So, and I also offered you, as I have others, and almost very few people take me up on it. I'm not sure why. To you can live stream on FacoTube. I've done it once or twice from my phone, but that's not my thing. But I obviously live stream from my computer, so you could do that too if you so wanted. And I've put your my favorite videos from your Facebook onto FacoTube. I could put all of them, but I try and just pick a selection of the stuff that I really like, and then put links to it so they could go to your profile as well. That's where I put the source.
If I were more organized, I'd have copies of my own work, right? If I had any sense about technology other than the theory, the practice coming, and the application of it, the theoretical application of it from the predators, that would be great. I'm just one of those seriously disorganized people who's always looking at the next new thing, with inverted commas, and also trying to put the next new thing into the framework of the bigger picture. And so, that's always my priority rather than something I've already done. It would be nice to have an assistant, but that's just never going to happen. I've tried begging my sister to help me do this, but she won't.
Well, there
And
might
she's
be people.
the only person I trust at the moment.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well,
So,
that's fine. Well, you're more of the creative thinker, and the creative thinker can't be captured into all these little nooks and crannies to put everything in a line and organize. I get that. That's fine. You're more of an artistic type where you just are constantly looking and
there's
creating.
just not enough time. The
Hmm.
administration is really heavy,
Oh, I know.
of just running a profile, and keeping up to date, with my friends, my little clique, the people that I associate with, and the people whom, when I say trust, to the degree that so far these people um, haven't disappointed me with the content that they create, the ideas that they have. It doesn't mean that our perspectives align entirely, but I don't see any red flags with those people.
That's good.
So
How long have you been a true? I think I could call you a truther, and that's not a derogatory term because I'm a truther. How long have you been awake or looking into things or just being curious as to the official story?
I think I would say that I was kind of brought up this way.
Hmm.
There's never been a defining turning point that I can point to. Most people will say, "Oh, it was 9/11 that woke me up," or "It was this vaccine injury that woke me up," or something along those lines. And I can cite many examples that catalyzed me to get to this point. But I'd say that even as a young child, I didn't have a lot of fun with other children because I thought they were stupid.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to talk, right? They all wanted to just play games. I was an only child up until I was 6.5, and I was surrounded by adults, and my cousins were older, and so on and so forth. And what I found stimulating was actually conversation and observing people and the human condition. But I suppose a memorable moment is when I brought home some grades. I used to attend Greek school when I was a child, which meant that was a Saturday school, so it was one day a week. Um, so I went to regular, normal Australian school for 5 days, and then on Saturdays I was sent to Greek school to learn Greek. My parents are Greek.
Okay.
Um, and I brought home my test results, which said A plus, and I showed them to my father, and he said, "Well, what do you expect? We pay them." And this really hurt, right? I was just a child. I was under 10.
Right. Ooh,
And
that's a little cutting.
yeah. So, it was nothing about me and my achievement. It was that we were paying. And that stuck with me. It was a seed that was planted. And I would say probably that's what kicked things off. A type of ingrained cynicism. In our emails you sent a list of things that we might talk about,
Yeah.
and one of those things was the 7 Up series.
Yes.
Love
that series.
Yeah, so let's go back to the Greeks. Aristotle said, the philosopher, "Give me a boy until he is 7, and I will give you the man," or something along those lines.
I'll show you the man. Yeah.
And so I think I was my character was formed by the time I was 7. I was quite serious as a person, as a child, even. And yeah, I think my dad played a big role in that. So to get to the point, what made me a truther or a person seeking to understand, because sense making. Who was it? Matthias Desmet,
right?
The guy that talks about what is it? Something psychosis. What does he call it? So,
I've kind of blanked him out of my mind, but it's because he was sort of discredited and maybe working for the bad guys.
quite possibly.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
mass formation.
Mass
psychosis.
formation, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there is I think a good point that he makes about sense making, and do we seek sense making? And to use a new age term that resonates with me. That does reflect who I am. I'm always looking to make sense of things. I've never been happy to learn things by repetition or rote learning. And I think that stems from the fact that I have a terrible memory, to be honest with you. I think there's a real reason why I rejected being taught things off by heart and without meaning, because I could not perform in tests that way. Something had to make sense to me for me to be able to retain it.
Yeah.
And so I've been a sense-making seeker all my life, and I'm never I'm not satisfied. I just have never been able to defer to people's research or research in general, because this is another thing that you mentioned in the email. You said, do you want to talk about your research? When did you start your research? And who are your favorite I don't know, other tellers of truth and other researchers? I mean, it's not that I haven't looked and that I haven't read and that I don't want to hear people's opinions. I do. But it's not the ground I stand on. The ground I stand on is my observations and my experienced reality. So if something doesn't line up with my personal experience of reality, and that would mean I've missed out on a lot of things, right? Because I'm just one person. I can't have experienced a lot of things. But if I can't extrapolate to something in my own life, then it's something I won't have an opinion on. For example, aliens. I haven't had a direct experience or any kind of personal experience of aliens.
Yeah, me neither.
I could say the same for religion. God hasn't come to me to talk to me personally or to sort of deliver some kind of message so that I can go in that direction. And so that remains an intellectual sort of pursuit, but it's not something that, I'll stand on a hill about and yell about and try to convince others of because somebody else wrote something really good about it, or most of the population of the planet has, feels this way about it. So I'm not sure where I started.
Well, we're just talking about
Mm.
how you became a truther. So it sounds like you were born a truther. I'm very similar in the way you describe yourself. It's the way I describe myself as well. I probably didn't want to play as much with the other people. I just wanted to go my own way. I was okay probably at memorizing stuff, but I was also a bit of a thinker. But and I always had to work really hard to be smart in the sense to do well. I just had to work hard. Some people just sit back and they're autistic about it. They're just really they get things, math concepts. So I've always had to work hard to figure out what's going on in school and in reality, I think. And wasn't much of a person to play around and just go with the flow. I always went upstream when everyone went downstream. So I think we're similar backgrounds and ideals, and you're just born this way.
And not to, and to balance really what I'm saying, what I love about other researchers. Actually, I don't even know if I'm a researcher. I don't even know if that's the correct title for me. I would just say I'm a, self-appointed propaganda analyst or interpreter is what I might say I am. But what I like about other people and their writing is when they bring to my attention something that fits into the puzzle.
Oh yes, I'm the same way. Yeah, that's what I do.
That makes so much sense. Finally, there's a dot that connects this and that. And you spoke about Lark.
Yeah, Lark in Texas.
Earlier, yeah. And Jenna and Brian. And they're part of the anti-communitarian movement.
Yeah.
And I met them through the late Nikki Rapana.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikki Rapana provided not a piece of the puzzle. I would say she provided
the framework. She had the edges of the puzzle.
The whole frame.
Yeah.
With communitarianism.
Yeah, she did the edges of the puzzle.
Pardon?
She did the edges of the puzzle. You know how there's people that you're supposed to do the edges first? And then
Yeah, exactly.
I think she really built the framework, and she has a good book, and I have that on my website somewhere. You just look on my website under Agenda 21 topic, you'll probably find it, but I have that PDF that I've provided on my book, and I have talked to her daughter Nordica about a year or so ago, and that was interesting as well. That's really before I really knew what communitarianism is, and yeah, I wanted to get Nikki on, but then found out that she died, which is really sad. But she was living a hard life. She really looked like she was just overexposed to the elements. Not a great thing to do, I don't think, when you're trying to stay healthy. However, that's what happened. So yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I'm the same way with the puzzle, and I get really excited when I meet really great researchers or people that really speak well about the whole thing, like yourself, because I never heard of you, and then all of a sudden, oh, you're another huge piece of the puzzle, and then I can just overlap your research with other research, and I'm every week just building this massive puzzle that really explains what's going on. And I get that's my favorite part about research is meeting and finding new research that really makes an amazing mosaic. And that I'm not really a researcher. I'm a I'm like a scrapbook person where I just take people's research and put them in my scrapbook and make this huge scrapbook. And hopefully others can look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I'm very, very similar. Communitarianism has been quite literally the most difficult thing that I've ever tried to wrap my mind around because it's so big.
Yes.
So even though my strengths would be big picture, the forest, not the detailed tree. communitarianism has been the longest journey. Other people think, oh, COVID happened and I learned that vaccines are bad for you. And I sort of reflect differently because I'd figured out what vaccines were a little while ago. COVID happened and I understood communitarianism and how, the one world government, how it operates. Theory is always the thing that tickles my brain because theory can be applied to many things in reality and practicality. Trying to parse and understand and tease out all the details will have you spinning for years. Details like, oh God, where to start? Basically, the next new thing. Keeping up with the news cycle, which the never-ending thriller of what's on the television.
Right.
We have the train derailment.
Yes,
here.
I was just looking at that before you came on because I have a forums called fakeologist.com/forums too, and I don't even keep up with my own forum. I put it there so I can go there and find research. And someone just put a couple of videos of boots on the ground in East Palestine or East Palestine, where the guy's walking around and there's really not much going on. Okay, the train went off the rails and they burned it because they thought that would help. And there's not a whole lot. Life is going on. I never had heard about it, and they've made it into this big thing. But yeah, you're right. You can get so distracted. I chose to ignore it, but people are bringing me stuff to look at, so I usually look at it because it's on my own website. So yeah, it's distraction of the week.
It's both. It's both a distraction, but it's a distraction with basis, right? Because a whole heap of people, it looks that they've been poisoned, that the damage is going to be long term. Much like radiation spills and other toxic spills and the spraying in the skies and the biotechnological weapons that they've been injecting, or presumably that's what they are, allegedly. See, this is where, what I was describing before, what's my own personal experience? Can I determine what's in those vaccines, or do I have to take somebody's word for it? And that means having to trust the person that's producing that research or doing that science. And I think that one thing I've learned in life is just you can't really trust.
Yeah.
Particularly
don't trust the science. Yeah. Don't trust.
Yeah. Science changes, right? And this is, I think this is why this technocracy of lawmaking around science and technology is one of the major components and pillars of the New World Order. And what do I mean is because it's fluid, because science is it's an endeavor. It's an endeavor till the end of time, until we no longer have brains, right?
Yeah.
The science, 10 years ago said this, and 5 weeks ago said that, and in 6 months it will say something else. Technology is the same. It was this, it will become that, and in the future we don't know what it'll be. This constant evolution of both of those paradigms is that they're changing. In today's jargon, newspeak, you would say that they're fluid. And what does that mean? It means that you can mold them and put them in whatever bottle and present them however you wish, whenever the need arises. So a law system, a governance system built upon technology and science is something you'll never know what your rights are, what your obligations are. You'll never know where you stand in life. You'll always be looking to, well, what's the science this week? Do I have to wear a mask or not? Do I need to get a booster or not?
Yeah.
Should I take that vitamin pill or not?
Yeah, it's
You
fluid.
know,
Very fluid.
sorry.
Very fluid. It's very fluid. Yeah. It's a moving
Yeah,
target. You can't pin it down.
yeah. So this is like a kind of moral relativism. And to get back to communitarianism,
Yeah, I want to
uh,
talk about that. Let's go through your points. You made a whole bunch of points. So if nothing else, I want to make sure we cover communitarianism
okay.
because that's what
So
everyone's here for. They really want to hear about that, and you have a good handle on it. Why is it that why aren't the governments of the day, why aren't our rulers telling us that this is what's coming, this is what they want to bring in? Why isn't that happening? Why are they hiding it from us if it's so good?
isn't that a good question?
Hmm.
If it's so damn good, right? For
Hmm.
the good of everybody, because this is all about the common good.
Yeah.
That is the basic underlying, I don't know, no, it's the campaign, it's the jingle for the greater good and for the greater good.
Yeah.
And how is that not something to brag about?
Hmm.
And that's because when you look a little bit into communitarianism, because, I profess, I don't know, I think I know about 1% of it, but knowing 1% of it, of communitarianism, is a whole lot more than most would imagine. It's huge, this topic. And that's why I call it the frame of the puzzle, because it seems that there's nothing I've come across since understanding communitarianism that doesn't fit into this puzzle.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm still at 1%. I think I could spend a lifetime on it, and I think I have spent a lifetime on it. And, why is it hidden? Because essentially, there's a guru. Okay, so the modern communitarian guru, the guy that writes all about it, his name is Amitai Etzioni.
Hmm.
And he's written a book called Happiness is the Wrong Metric, a liberal communitarian response to populism. Now, not to, what's the crux of it? The crux of it in the introduction tells you that it's about applied ethics. It's the science of moral duties. And this is what will put the happiness in you'll own nothing, but you will be happy.
Hmm.
So what they've done is they've studied, what makes people happy, what makes them miserable. And they've decided and they've come up with, well, affluent people in the developed countries, well, there isn't a correlation between more money equals more happiness or more material wealth equals more happiness. There seems to be sort of like a break-off point where there is no correlation between how much money you have and how happy you are. But this is like a false premise, right? After the point where you've, satisfied your basic human needs of, having enough food, having the correct food, having enough medicine, the correct medicine, having enough space in your house, having, a car to get around. When you satisfy, Maslow's, hierarchy of needs or whatever, after that point, they're arguing that, well, material wealth doesn't bring happiness. But that just leaves out all of the variables of a society under demolition, right? An internal demolition of society. It's like, we're just not going to look at the fact that we have intentionally made you sick. We have intentionally broken you spiritually. We have intentionally and deliberately made your material goods so that they don't last very long, so that they don't perform how they should, so that you are actually the product, not the thing that you bought. So it's if you go right down to the bottom of it, it's a false premise. However, that doesn't stop them, and it never has, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this whole book is devoted to technocracy, and that is the science of moral ethics and applied ethics, which actually means codifying morality into the law. And this is in opposition to a liberal democracy and having personal individual rights, and that being the basis of Western societies, as it has been for many years now. See, that's the Western ideology, right? That as long as I don't hurt anyone, I should be allowed to reach my potential and to seek my happiness, and to make money or to do whatever it is that I want to do. Eastern philosophies, on the other hand, and I speak in generalizations, right? Because there's no way we can go into, each philosopher. I can't research each philosopher. I can't research each ideology on the planet. So, and I've always been a generalist. So, two opposing ideas, because communitarianism is very much about always pitting two extremes together.
All right.
Forcing people to choose these polar opposites and to polarize themselves. And then the synthesis comes in, the solution to the problem reaction solution, or the synthesis to the thesis, which means a position, antithesis, which means the opposite position, and synthesis means the merging of those two positions. So we've got this communitarianism, which is very much predicated on the Hegelian dialectic, which I just described.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got Eastern philosophy, which is collectivism in general. So generally, it's the doctrine of the greater good, okay, and self-sacrifice. There are even plenty of examples, I suppose, in I think Hinduism and these are sort of Eastern doctrines, which we sometimes call religions, but they don't really fall under the definition of religion.
Mm-hmm.
They actually fall under law. So those ideas and principles are being blended with the Western idea of, individualization and individual rights.
Property rights too. That's a big one.
Well, exactly. So to abolish property is key to abolishing individual rights, because if you don't have your own house, your own car, then you are at the mercy of whoever owns that to determine how you sleep, what you eat, how you get about, if you get about. So this is what's anathema to Western people, because it's in our culture to not think that way, right? And probably the reason for most likely the reason for cancel culture, canceling our culture, canceling our languages, our identity, our skin color, our differences. And this is, I suppose, another overarching theme in communitarianism is that one world government. So the pitch to the public is conflict resolution and getting rid of the variables that bring about conflict. And the variables that bring about conflict are differences. So if we get rid of all the differences that we have, okay?
Yeah.
So if you stop having your culture and your language and your own ideas, if we get rid of your gender, and I get rid of mine, and we'll get to the point where there's nothing that is distinctive about either of us, and also in this communitarianism, abolishing private property, blah blah.
Yeah, that's a big one.
There's this equity thing, right? You'll each be given X amount of credits. You'll all have the same. You will have nothing to be nothing to aspire to, nothing to be jealous of, nothing to say it's not fair, because we're all the same. And so this is like the ultimate idea of, well, we'll get rid of all the things that make us special and unique and distinctive. We'll get rid of, and that means getting rid of culture and everything that our ancestors did and thought. And all the things that I have will have to be the same as what you have. And therefore, we will not fight anymore. I don't know what we'll have to live for, however, in this scenario.
Yeah, everything is bland. Everything is gray. No property, since possession. It says here on my screen. Most of us have heard the saying, "Possession is 9/10 of the law." Well, if you get rid of privacy and private property, then that's 9/10 of the law will be gone, because we won't need to fight over the car or the house or who has what, because it'll all be given to us by the state, and they're sorting out who gets what. So there's no possession laws. There's just none of that. So that to me is a huge thing when it comes to communitarianism. So I can see why now you can start to see why they wouldn't tell anyone what's coming. The young people who may not have as much, they're going to be okay with it because they don't have anything to lose. But the people in the middle that'll work their whole lives, and the older people who have come up in this existing system, they have less to lose because they have less time. But on the other hand, if they want to give it and pass it down, that's where I fear that things are going to get messy and stuck and stolen in the next few years. I think a lot of people think that way as well.
Well, I think what's brilliant about the New World Order is how much foresight they had, and how much they set it all up, so that each little domino would bring about the next one.
Right.
So what you say about, the younger generation hasn't got anything to lose, well, that's correct. I spoke to a couple of young women in their 20s the other day, and I said, do you think you're ever going to own a house? And they giggled and laughed at me. I could see the pain in their eyes, but at the same time, they knew that they would never have the opportunity to be home owners and property owners. That's how it's plain as day. When I was about 20 years old, I was earning 26 Australian dollars an hour in a sunglass hut.
Wow, yeah, we have that.
Worked. Yeah, that's all. That's global. It was it started off as Sunglass World, which was an Australian company, which was bought out by the international conglomerate of Sunglass Hut. So now we all have to have the same thing. When we were offshoring all the jobs, the company I worked for was bought out, and I was earning $26 an hour. Fast forward to when I'm 42 or 43 or whatever, and I came back to Australia, and so I had been living in Greece for nearly a couple of decades, and I came back, and I was pretty desperate for work. And a family friend offered me a job for the same money. $26, 26 Australian dollars, 2 decades later, more than 2 decades later. So forget the inflation part, right? Where those $26, it's just insane, right? So, this dollar has lost so much value. Things have gone up in price 1,000 times, and they're still offering, and this was like the kind of like basic kind of wage.
Yeah, I've seen it too.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's in my business too. I'm in transportation still, and I've been in it for 35 years. So I see the prices. I know they haven't moved really. So I see what people are doing things for, and shake my head. I've just always been a super conservative saver. So I knew potentially one of these days this was coming, where potentially you could lose it all. So as long as you are able to save it and invest in a strategic way, I think it can survive. But if you're foolish and spendthrift, then
Well, I
I feel
think,
bad for anyone in that
can I ask how
situation.
old you are?
Yeah, I'm 55, so I've
Okay.
been
Well,
working a long time,
yeah.
a
You
long time,
had
and I'm
the
still working.
opportunity to save.
Yeah.
But
Oh
let's
yeah.
be fair. There is no opportunity to save nowadays with the wages that are on offer. You will barely survive if you do not have another person working in the same household.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I can see that.
So that's great advice of, be thrifty and whatever, to people of the past. But today, um, that's gone. They got rid of it. And I think we should probably, I don't know, talk about, the economy, and that, well, we've we've lived in a world that is driven by economy. There's pretty much not anything, not any field, no paradigm, no, aspect of life that isn't connected to the economy. And so this whole reset, you can, we can talk about things like, applied ethics and the law and a one world religion. And we can talk about details like vaccine passports and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, that reset is an economic reset. That
Oh, for
new world
sure.
order is a new international economic order. And when you shift, when you change the foundations, it has a knock-on effect on absolutely every aspect of life. And I think the most depressing aspect of it is that with communitarianism and this new economy, this environmental social governance structure, is that your one's worth in life, and what they're entitled to, will be based on their behavior and actions as read, as um, as analyzed by algorithms coded by humans, of course, um, that determine, are you a good person? Are you a socially good person? And are you an environmentally good person? Did you recycle? Did you volunteer? Because this is very much a volunteer society we're moving into. And I don't know, how long it's going to take all the steps from money to just credits.
Right.
There'll be overlap of money and social credit, and then at some point it'll get to just straight social credit, just digital tokens and credentials, and absolutely nothing to do with money at all.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we've, I can speak to Western culture, and I would even say, no, I won't speak to Eastern culture. I don't understand it enough. That our priorities, right, are besides ourselves, are our inner circle, our family, our next of kin. This is where we derive our value in society comes from actually, how well, our parents love us, how much we love our children, how much they love us back, how much
That's right.
the connections that we have with our friends, with our bosses, with our colleagues, with our classmates. The people we know in real life are the people that determine how successful we are or not on a personal level, and on the sort of career scale or the financial side, because you have to please your boss to get that promotion or that money. The new communitarian model is about pleasing the algorithms, checking the boxes, which are designed for the greater good. Now, the greater good actually means the children who are starving in Africa, to use that totally, that platitude, whatever. It is, how the people on the other side of the country are faring on some scale,